Show me your wrist. Alpha King Callum Vance did not raise his voice, but every wolf in Silverbridge Tower went still like the building itself had remembered who owned it. Harper Wren froze with one knee on the black marble floor, her scattered medical files spread around her like evidence at a crime scene. 3 seconds earlier, Lady Sloane Mercer had laughed and called her a weak little Omega who smelled like rainwater and office paper. 2 seconds earlier, half the pack had laughed with her. 1 second earlier, the strip of white gauze around Harper's wrist had slipped just far enough for the king to see the silver mark beneath it. Now nobody was laughing. Harper curled her fingers over the mark and felt her pulse hit hard against her palm. "It's nothing, Your Majesty." That was a lie, and judging by the way Callum's jaw tightened, he heard it land. The loyalty audit was supposed to be simple. Omegas came in, stepped beneath the scent lamps, let the council measure their bond strength, and left with a rating that decided where they belonged in the pack hierarchy. Strong Omegas worked near leadership families. Useful Omegas served in healing wings or nursery houses. Weak Omegas got basement jobs, quiet corners, and smiles sharp enough to leave bruises without touching skin. Harper had been put in records because Paper did not care how faint her scent was. Paper did not smirk. Paper did not whisper that a wolf who could barely be read by the lamps was hardly a wolf at all. Councillor Pierce Alden stepped forward too quickly. "Your Majesty, Miss Wren is a clerical Omega. There is no need to interrupt the audit over a bandage." Callum did not look at him. That made Alden look worse. "I wasn't speaking to you." A cold ripple moved through the hall. Harper heard someone swallow behind her. Sloane stood near the front row in a cream suit that probably cost more than Harper's rent for a year, her smile fading by inches. Callum came down the steps from the throne platform, black coat buttoned, silver signet at his hand, control in every line of him. He looked like a man built out of duty and bad sleep. Harper should have lowered her eyes. Every instinct she had been taught since childhood told her to lower them. Instead, she looked straight at him and hated how badly her hand was shaking. "I can explain." His gaze dropped to her wrist. "Then start." Before Harper could speak, the air changed. Not wind, not sound, something older. The royal wolf, Rook, stepped out from the shadow beside the throne, massive and black, his eyes fixed on Harper's covered wrist. Guards shifted back. Alden went pale. Rook crossed the hall, ignored every alpha in the room, and stopped in front of the weakest Omega in Silverbridge. Then he lowered his head and knelt. Rook did not kneel to people. That was the first thing every child in Silverbridge learned right after "Do not run in front of shifting wolves and never call the council harmless where the council can hear you." The royal wolf stood for kings, tolerated betas, ignored nobles, and once dragged a visiting alpha by the coat sleeve out of a treaty dinner because the man had lied about border taxes. But now he was on one knee in front of Harper Wren, his black head lowered over her covered wrist like he had found something sacred under cheap gauze and bad timing. Harper could feel the whole hall staring at her. Not looking, staring. The kind of stare people gave a locked door after hearing something breathe on the other side. "This is a misunderstanding," Councillor Alden said, and his voice cracked just enough for every wolf in the room to hear it. Callum finally looked at him. "That is the second time you have tried to explain something I have not asked you." Alden shut his mouth. Lady Sloane took one careful step back, then stopped when Callum's eyes moved to her. Harper wished, with unreasonable intensity, that she was back in the records basement arguing with a broken printer. Printers jammed. Printers blinked red lights. Printers did not kneel like ancient royal wolves and accidentally ruin your entire life before lunch. Rook lifted his head and nudged Harper's hand with his nose. Not hard, almost polite. That somehow made it worse. "Please do not," Harper whispered. Rook gave her a look that felt very much like, "I outrank your denial." Callum crouched in front of her, slow enough not to corner her, close enough that his shadow cut across the spilled files. His voice dropped. "Miss Wren, I am not going to force your hand open in front of my pack." Something in Harper's chest twisted, because she had expected command, not restraint. "Then let me leave." "I cannot do that either." "Because you think I am dangerous?" His jaw tightened. "Because my wolf just knelt to you, and half my council looks like they have seen a ghost they personally buried." The words landed too close to the truth. Harper looked past him at Alden. He was pale now, not angry pale, not embarrassed pale. Afraid. That scared her more than Rook. Callum noticed where she was looking. Of course he did. Kings probably learned early that silence had fingerprints. He stood and turned to the hall. The audit is suspended. Everyone without royal clearance leaves now. Nobody moved for one breath. Then the guards did. That was enough. Nobles rose, Omegas gathered their bags. Council aides pretended not to hurry and failed. Sloane lingered. Your Majesty, surely I should stay. My family has served the throne for generations. Rook sneezed. It was small, rude, and devastating. One guard made a sound like he had swallowed a laugh and wanted to live. Callum did not smile. Lady Mercer, your service will continue from outside the room. Sloane's face hardened, but she left. Alden tried to follow. Not you, Callum said. The doors closed with a heavy click. The throne hall felt too large with only Harper, Callum, Alden, 3 guards, and a royal wolf who had settled beside Harper like he had chosen a side and expected everyone else to catch up. Callum looked at her wrist again. Who told you to hide it? Harper's fingers tightened around the gauze. My mother. Alden inhaled sharply. Harper heard it. Callum heard it. Even Rook's ears turned. Callum's voice went very still. What was her name? Harper swallowed. Marion Wren. Alden whispered. That is impossible. Harper looked at him then, really looked. Funny. That is what people keep saying right before they lie to me. Harper learned very quickly that royal protection came with locked doors, armed guards, and a polite young beta telling her not to panic while standing in front of a hallway built like a bunker. The west wing of Silverbridge Tower did not feel like a guest suite. It felt like the kind of place important people put problems before deciding whether the problem had rights. Callum walked ahead of her with Councillor Alden at his side and Rook behind her, close enough that every guard they passed found a sudden interest in the ceiling. Harper kept her wrist pressed against her stomach. The gauze was back in place, but the mark beneath it burned like moonlight under skin. I want my records, she said. Callum stopped near a set of dark oak doors. You are in the middle of a royal security matter. And your security matter is standing on 12 years of missing medical files. Alden made a tight sound. Miss Wren, you are in no position to make demands. Harper turned to him. She was tired, scared, and still had marble dust on one knee. But she had spent 6 years filing pack reports for men who thought volume was the same thing as authority. Alden was not special. He was just louder in a better suit. Then call it a request made by the woman your royal wolf just knelt to. Rook gave one low huff. It sounded dangerously like approval. Callum looked at the wolf, then at Harper, and for half a second she saw something slip through his control. Not softness. Not yet. More like surprise that she had teeth and had finally decided to use them. Bring her the records from the basement office, he told a guard. All of them. Alden stepped forward. Your Majesty, that archive contains restricted Omega health histories. Then it is fortunate Miss Wren already works there. The guard left fast, grateful to have a task that involved walking away. Callum opened the suite door himself. Harper expected gold, velvet, maybe some ridiculous royal couch no one was allowed to sit on. Instead, the room was quiet and modern, with gray walls, a low fire, a desk, and tall windows looking out over the city. It smelled faintly like cedar, rain, and Callum. The last part annoyed her because it made her wolf go still in a way she did not trust. Rook walked in first, inspected the room, then dragged a folded black blanket from the sofa and dropped it beside the desk. Harper stared at him. Is that for me? Rook stared back. Callum closed his eyes for one very patient second. That is mine. Rook sat on it. Harper almost laughed, which felt completely inappropriate and badly needed. Callum noticed. His mouth did not move, but his eyes changed. Just a little. The moment passed when Alden spoke from the doorway. This is becoming sentimental nonsense. Callum turned cold again. You may leave. I advise against being alone with her. The silence that followed had edges. Harper felt Callum's wolf press close to the surface, not wild, not cruel, but insulted in a way older than manners. Callum said, You have advised enough for one morning. Alden left, but not before glancing at Harper's wrist like it was evidence he had failed to bury deep enough. When the door shut, Callum stayed near it, giving her space. Your mother told you to hide the mark, he said. Harper rubbed her thumb over the gauze. She told me if anyone from the council asked about it, I should say I burned myself on a kettle. How old were you? 7. His face changed then. It was small, but she saw it. Anger, carefully folded. That is a strange thing to teach a child. So is teaching her that being invisible keeps her alive. Before he could answer, the guard returned with 3 cardboard file boxes and Harper's battered laptop bag. Harper went straight to work because work was easier than fear. She sorted names, dates, sent scores, altered witness lines. The pattern appeared after 40 minutes. A missing signature here. A changed classification there. Her mother's name hidden under an old registry code. Then Harper found the list and forgot how to breathe. Lunar Bond witnesses, sealed 18 years ago. Marion Wren was 3rd from the top. Beside her name was one word in red ink. Removed. Callum read it over her shoulder, close enough that the mate bond pulled tight between them like a thread catching on a nail. Harper did not look at him. My mother did not die in a clinic fire, did she? Rook lowered his head beside her chair. Callum's silence answered first. Callum did not answer right away, and Harper hated him for needing time. Not because she expected comfort from an alpha king. Comfort from men like Callum Vance probably came in the form of a signed policy update and a security escort. She hated the silence because part of her had already started hoping he would be different. He stood behind her chair, reading the sealed list again, his face carved into something too controlled to be honest. Harper closed the folder with both hands. Say something. Callum looked at the red ink beside Marion Wren's name. I do not know what happened to your mother. That is not what I asked. His eyes met hers. No, I do not believe she died in a clinic fire. The room seemed to lose a few degrees. Harper nodded once, because if she did anything bigger, she might fall apart in front of the king, the royal wolf, and 3 cardboard boxes of government betrayal. Great. Good to know my childhood trauma came with a filing error. Rook made a low sound beside her knee. Not a growl. More like grief with fur. Callum moved then, 1 step closer, then stopped himself. Harper saw it. The restraint. The way his hand lifted half an inch and lowered again, because he had no right to comfort her just because his wolf wanted to. There is one way to confirm what the mark is, he said carefully. A moonstone response. Harper laughed once, dry and sharp. That sounds expensive and unpleasant. It is old pack law. Safe, if done correctly. And if done incorrectly? Then every council member in the city will pretend they were never interested. That almost made her smile. Almost. Callum sent for the stone himself. Not through Alden, not through the council. 10 minutes later, a beta named Miles brought in a small silver case and looked everywhere except Harper's wrist. Callum dismissed him and locked the door. You can say no, he said. Harper stared at him. Would saying no make me less suspicious? No. Then that was not a real choice. His expression tightened. It is still yours. That landed harder than it should have. Harper unwrapped the gauze herself. The mark was pale silver, curved like a broken moon, set into the inside of her wrist as if it had always been waiting for the right disaster. Callum placed the moonstone on the desk between them. He did not touch her. He did not crowd her. He simply waited while Rook sat on his blanket with the solemn expression of a judge who had already reached a verdict and was bored by procedure. Harper brought her wrist near the stone. The mark lit first. Then the room answered. The windows trembled softly. The fire bent blue. Every file box on the desk snapped open at once, pages lifting like they had been holding their breath for 18 years. Harper gasped, but what stole the air from her lungs was not the light. It was Callum. For one impossible second, she felt him across the room as clearly as her own heartbeat. Tired, guarded, lonely in a way that had learned to wear a crown. Callum stepped back so fast his shoulder hit the door. Rook turned his head and gave him a look of pure disappointment. Harper wrapped her wrist against her chest. What was that? Callum's voice came out low. A bond reaction. A pack bond. He did not answer. Harper's stomach sank. Callum. His name left her mouth before his title could stop it. His eyes flicked to hers, shaken for the first time since she had met him. A mate bond, he said. One that should not exist. By sunrise, the mate bond had become a political problem, which was exactly the kind of thing Silverbridge did best. Harper was given tea she did not drink, a chair she did not trust, and a formal notice from the Pack Ethics Board accusing her of falsifying a sacred mark, disrupting a royal audit, and using unauthorized bond influence on the Alpha King. The notice was printed on cream paper with the council seal at the top, because apparently betrayal looked better with nice stationery. Harper read it twice at the desk in the West Wing suite, while Rook watched from Callum's stolen blanket. Unauthorized bond influence, she said. That is a fancy way of saying they think I flirted with a moon rock. Rook sneezed. Harper pointed at him. Do not start. You are the reason half of this is happening. The door opened before Rook could defend himself, and Callum stepped in with Beta miles behind him. Callum looked as if he had not slept. His black coat was perfect, his hair was not, and Harper hated that she noticed. Miles set a tablet on the desk. The council has already pushed the story to the pack feed, he said carefully. Harper tapped the screen. There she was, photographed from the throne hall floor, one hand over her wrist, eyes wide, files everywhere. The headline read, Basement Omega under investigation after Royal Bond incident. Lady Sloane had given a statement calling for stability, transparency, and protection of the throne from emotional manipulation. Harper stared at it. Wow. She really said all three boring words in one sentence. Callum's mouth almost moved. Almost. Then he saw the comments beneath the post, and whatever softness had tried to exist disappeared. Weak Omega wants a crown. Fake mark. Lock her out before she poisons the bloodline. Harper put the tablet face down. Do not. Callum looked at her. Do not what? Do not do the Alpha King thing where your voice drops 2 octaves, and everyone has to pretend that fixes facts. Miles suddenly found the fireplace fascinating. Callum's jaw flexed. I can shut this down. By claiming me? The room went quiet. Even Rook stopped breathing like a normal animal. Callum did not answer quickly enough. Harper nodded, because there it was. The beautiful royal cage. If he publicly called her his mate, the council could not touch her without challenging him. But then every truth she found would belong to him. Every scar in her family history would be reduced to a romance rumor. No, Harper said. I am not going to be rescued so they can say I survived because you liked me. Callum took that like a hit he deserved. Then what do you want? My basement office. My access codes. Every Omega health record Alden sealed before I was old enough to spell conspiracy. Miles blinked. That is a lot of records. Good. I am in the mood. Callum studied her for a long second, then handed her a black access card. You have 4 hours before the board hearing. Harper took the card, and their fingers brushed for half a second. The bond pulled warm and sharp between them. Callum went still. Harper did too. Neither of them mentioned it, which somehow made it louder. The basement archive smelled like dust, toner, and secrets that thought they were safe. Harper worked fast. She pulled sent scores from 12 years ago, then 15, then 18. Names had been changed. Omega classifications had been lowered. Witness statements had been moved under dead case numbers. At 3:17 in the afternoon, she found the mended page Rook had been trying to lead her toward all along. Marion Wren had not only been listed as a lunar bond witness. She had testified against Counselor Alden. Harper sat back, cold all over. At the bottom of the page was the authorization that erased the testimony. The signature belonged to the previous Alpha King, Callum's father. The door clicked open behind her. Callum stood there, and Harper did not hide the paper. Her voice came out quiet. Did your family erase mine? Callum looked at the paper in Harper's hand like it had reached across 18 years and put a blade under his crown. For once, he did not have an answer ready. No royal statement. No careful phrase. No calm order that made everyone else feel smaller. Just silence, heavy and terrible, filling the basement archive between the shelves of sealed Omega records. Harper waited anyway, because some foolish part of her still wanted him to say no. She wanted him to take the page, look her in the eye, and tell her his family had not signed away her mother's truth with black ink and a royal seal. Callum took the document slowly. His thumb moved over his father's signature. I was 15 when this was signed. Harper laughed under her breath, but there was no humor in it. That is not a denial. His eyes lifted to hers. No, it is not. The bond between them tightened, warm and painful, like it did not understand politics, dead mothers, or the fact that sometimes the person meant to find you came from the family that helped bury you. Harper stepped back before the feeling could trick her into forgiving too quickly. My mother testified against Alden. Then your father erased it. Callum's voice went rough. My father was afraid of anything he could not command, including Omega witnesses, including anyone who could prove the throne had been protected by lies. She stared at him. That almost sounded like honesty. He took that without flinching. It was. Rook stood in the doorway behind him, ears low, no jokes left in his wolf face. That hurt too. Harper had gotten used to Rook being rude enough to make horror survivable. Without that, The room felt colder. Callum looked at the stacks of files around them. If this is true, the council did not only erase your mother. They weakened the entire pack. Lunar Bond witnesses could detect false oaths. Without them, every treaty, every alliance, every loyalty hearing became easier to corrupt. That is a very royal way to say my mother was useful. His face changed. No, your mother was right. Harper looked away first. She hated him a little less for saying it, which made her hate the whole situation more. The Pack Ethics Board meets in 40 minutes, she said. They are going to destroy me before I can read half of this. Then I will open the king's vault. Harper turned back. Even Rook lifted his head. What is in the vault? Callum's expression hardened, not at her, but at the weight waiting for him upstairs. My father's sealed reign records. If he authorized this, the proof will be there. And if opening it makes your throne look dirty, then my throne is dirty. It was the first thing he had said that made the bond feel less like a trap and more like a door. Harper wanted to believe him. That was the problem. Wanting had become dangerous. By evening, Silverbridge Tower was shaking under rumors. Callum disappeared into the sealed vault with Miles and 2 royal auditors. Harper stayed in the West Wing, reading until the words blurred. The more she found, the clearer the pattern became. Downgraded Omega sent scores. Missing witness names. Alden's initials on transfers. Mercer family payments hidden under security contracts. Her whole life had been filed under weak because Strong would have made the wrong people nervous. At midnight, Harper made a decision that felt like swallowing glass. She packed copies of the records into her worn canvas bag, wrapped her wrist, and left the black access card on the desk. She also left a note for Callum, because disappearing without one felt cruel, and she was trying very hard not to become like the people who had hurt her. It said, I cannot tell if you want justice because it is right or because the bond makes me hard to lose. I need the answer before I stand beside you. Rook caught her at the service elevator. He blocked the doors with his whole massive body. Harper crouched in front of him and pressed her forehead lightly to his. Do not make this harder. Rook whined, soft and offended. She slipped past him when the elevator opened. At the East Pack border, Dawn was just turning the highway silver when 3 council vehicles pulled in behind her. Alden stepped out, buttoning his coat like he had been expecting her. Miss Wren, he said, running makes you look guilty. Harper tightened her grip on the bag. Funny, so does waiting for me at the border. Alden had brought 6 council guards, 2 black sport utility vehicles, and the smug patience of a man who had rehearsed this scene in the mirror. Harper looked at all of it, then down at her canvas bag full of stolen truth, and decided fear was becoming repetitive. Are we pretending this is an arrest, she asked, or are you calling it protective transport so the paperwork feels cleaner? Alden smiled. You always did talk more than a weak Omega should. Harper nodded toward the vehicles. And you always did need backup to feel tall. One guard looked away too fast. Alden's smile thinned, but he did not touch her. He was too careful for that. Men like him knew violence left marks. Systems did not have to. By the time they brought her back to Silverbridge Tower, the full moon assembly had already been called. The Great Hall was packed wall to wall with alphas, betas, Omega witnesses, noble families, security officers, and every council aide who had ever confused a badge with a personality. White moonlight poured through the glass ceiling and turned the oath stones along the platform pale as bone. Lady Sloane stood near the front in a navy dress and a look of polished concern. Harper knew that look. It was the face people wore right before they ruined someone in public and asked for prayers afterward. Alden guided her to the center circle. Miss Wren was intercepted attempting to flee with restricted royal documents, he announced. A murmur rolled through the hall. Harper tightened her hand around the strap of her bag. Restricted documents are a funny name for records you buried. Sloane stepped forward, holding up a clear evidence folder. Inside were packets of silver dust, forged transfer slips, and a strip of gauze marked with ink that looked almost like Harper's mark. Almost. We also found materials used to imitate a lunar mark, Sloane said softly. This is not justice. This is manipulation. Harper stared at the folder, then at Sloane. Did you label the fake evidence yourself, or does the council have a craft department? Someone in the back choked on a laugh and tried to turn it into a cough. Alden's eyes sharpened. You will kneel before the assembly and request mercy. Harper felt the bond pull once, somewhere deep in her chest. as if it knew Callum was near before the doors opened. She did not look back. Not yet. No, she said. The word was small, but it held. Alden leaned closer. Think carefully. Harper raised her chin. I have been thinking carefully since I was 7 years old, and my mother taught me to hide my wrist from men like you. The great doors opened then. Callum entered in a black coat, followed by Miles, 2 royal auditors, and Rook, who carried a sealed leather case in his mouth like a very annoyed attorney. Callum's face was calm in the dangerous way storms were calm on weather radar. He walked to the platform, but he did not stand in front of Harper. He stood beside her. The hall went silent. Alden recovered first. Your Majesty, she is accused of deceiving the throne. Callum looked at Harper, not as a king claiming property, not as a man using a bond to silence a room, but as someone finally learning where to place his trust. Then she will speak first. Harper looked at him, and for the first time since dawn, the bond did not feel like a trap. It felt like space being made for her voice. She reached for the gauze on her wrist. Good, she said, because I brought receipts. Harper unwrapped the gauze slowly, not because she wanted drama, but because her hands were shaking and she refused to give Alden the satisfaction of seeing it. The silver mark curved along her wrist, quiet at first, just a pale moon under skin. A few people in the assembly leaned forward. Someone whispered, that could be painted. Harper looked at the evidence folder in Sloane's hand. Sure, let us test that. She stepped to the nearest oath stone, one of 12 old white stones set in a half circle before the platform. Pack law said they responded only to sworn truth. Pack politics said that depended on who was paying for the lawyers. Harper placed her marked wrist above the stone, not touching it. The mark flared silver. The stone answered with a clean white glow that rose through the hall, like moonlight caught in glass. The whispers stopped. Alden's face hardened. A trained trick. Harper nodded. Great. Then you try. That got a sound from the back of the room, half laugh, half panic. Callum stood beside her, silent, letting her hold the floor. That mattered more than she wanted it to. Harper opened her canvas bag and pulled out the first folder. 12 years of altered Omega Cent scores. 17 missing witness statements. 9 payments routed through Mercer security accounts. 3 sealed orders tied to my mother's testimony. Sloane lifted her chin. Those documents are stolen. No, Harper said. They are returned. Rook chose that moment to climb onto the council table, which was absolutely not allowed and also impossible to stop. He dropped the leather case in front of Harper, then sat on Alden's nameplate with the calm authority of a wolf improving government furniture. Miles opened the case and removed the vault records Callum had brought from his father's sealed rain files. The room seemed to hold its breath. Callum finally spoke. These records were hidden under royal seal. My father authorized the suppression of the lunar bond witnesses. Counselor Alden executed it. House Mercer benefited from it. Sloane went pale, then angry. You would stain your own throne for her. Callum looked at Harper before answering. No, I would clean it because she told the truth. The bond between them warmed, not loud, not claiming, just there, steady enough for Harper to stand on. Alden stepped toward the stones. This is sentimental theater. Harper held out the final folder. Then swear. His eyes flicked to the doors. The whole assembly saw it. Rook growled once, low and bored, as if disappointed Alden was not better at being guilty. Alden placed his hand on the oath stone. I served Silverbridge with loyalty. The stone went black. A single silver crack split down the middle with a sound like ice breaking on a lake. No one moved. Sloane tried to speak, but Harper cut in softly. Dead men do not update bank transfers, and weak Omegas do not make oath stones crack unless someone has been lying for a very long time. Callum turned to the assembly. Councillor Pierce Alden is removed from office. House Mercer is suspended from Royal Alliance review. All erased Omega lines will be restored by public record. Then, before the hall could decide how to breathe again, the Alpha King lowered himself to one knee in front of Harper. Not to claim her, not to save face, to apologize. Harper Wren, he said, voice rough but clear. The throne failed your family. I failed you when I hesitated. I am sorry. Harper looked down at him, at the king, the man, the wolf waiting behind his eyes, and felt justice arrive late, bruised, and still worth naming. For a long moment after Callum apologized, nobody in the full moon assembly knew what to do with the king on one knee. Silverbridge had seen orders, punishments, ceremonies, alliances, and speeches polished until they shined. It had not seen power bow to someone it had almost crushed. Harper looked at Callum and felt every eye in the hall pressing against her back, waiting for her to forgive him quickly so everyone else could feel better. She did not. Forgiveness, she had learned, was not a mop for other people's messes. It was not something handed out because the room got uncomfortable. She took one breath, then another, and said, "Get up." Callum rose slowly. His face stayed steady, but the bond between them carried the smallest bruise of hope. Harper turned to the assembly. "My mother was not weak. The Omegas whose records were erased were not weak. You called us weak because the truth we carried made powerful people nervous." No one argued. Alden stood between two royal guards, stripped of his council seal. House Mercer's representatives sat frozen, suddenly very interested in the floor. Sloane looked as if the world had committed a personal offense by keeping receipts. Rook, still on the council table, put one paw on Alden's cracked nameplate and pushed it off the edge. It hit the floor with a sharp little sound. Miles coughed into his fist. Harper almost smiled. Almost. In the weeks that followed, justice came the way real justice often does. Not as one perfect victory, but as paperwork, hearings, apologies, restored names, and 1,000 uncomfortable conversations people should have had years ago. Alden was removed from pack politics and sent beyond the eastern border under oath ban. House Mercer lost its Royal Alliance seat. The erased Omega lines were restored in public record, one name at a time, including Marion Wren, whose name was carved into Moon Hall beneath the words, "She told the truth before they were ready to hear it." Harper was offered a royal title. She refused the first version because it placed her under the throne. Callum rewrote it himself. By winter, she became lunar bond witness of Silverbridge, independent from the crown, protected by pack law, answerable to truth before any alpha. When Callum handed her the final document, Harper read all 6 pages twice. "You made emotional growth legally binding. I was trying to be thorough. That is the most you apology I have ever heard." His mouth softened. Not a full smile. Callum Vance still treated joy like a classified document. But it was there. He held out his hand, palm up, asking without taking. The mate bond warmed between them, patient now, no longer a trap or a verdict. Harper looked at his hand, then at the man who had learned that leadership was not control, that loyalty forced by fear was only silence wearing a uniform, and that an Omega's dignity was not a gift for an Alpha King to grant. It was hers before he ever saw it. She placed her hand in his. Rook sneezed directly on the royal document. Harper laughed first. Callum followed a second later, quiet and surprised, as if the sound had escaped without permission. Outside, snow began to fall over Silverbridge, softening the city without hiding its scars. The pack would need time. So would they. But for the first time in 18 years, the tower stood on truth instead of buried names. And every wolf in Silverbridge learned the same lesson by heart. A crown can command a room, but it cannot create loyalty. Only honor can do that.